Well, everybody, the holdup on the Glastron project is that I need guide tubes, the coolant tube guide tubes. In other words, they're these plastic sleeves that basically help you install and get the copper tubes to go down into the holes and into the grommets. And they're only used during installation, and then they just stay on the outside of the tube and stay there until the thing's taken apart again. They don't actually hold the water because the copper tube is what the water actually flows through. But without those guide tubes, it's almost impossible to try and jockey that lower gear case up into position and get these tubes right here to get into the proper grommets and seal correctly. So that being said, there are actually two guide tubes with two different part numbers, and the only difference is one is a short one and one is a long one. The reason why one is shorter than the other is because when you've got the two tubes that you're trying to get into the hole at the same time, if you've got a guide tube that's a little bit longer, you can get one in first and then slide it up, and as you're sliding it up, get the other one in. Kind of hard to explain without the actual parts in front of me, but hopefully you get what I'm meaning. So the problem is OMC Evinrude Johnson have decided to make the longer of the two guide tubes obsolete. So I'll put that part number up on the screen, but this part number is obsolete. The short guide tube is still available. Now, if the long guide tube was still available and the short wasn't, then I could just order two long ones and cut the long one down a little bit because it's just plastic. Problem is, only the short one's available, not the long one. You can't make the short one longer, so I went online, posted the question on a forum, hoping that maybe somebody would tell me that, they found some tube off the shelf that works perfectly fine for this application, cheap way out, that kind of thing. No luck. The recommendations I got were to contact a guy who's got a website where he specializes in having a lot of new old stock obsolete parts, to see if he's got them. I could do that, and if he does have them, I'd have a delay while I waited for them, and then I'm not sure what I'd end up paying for them, but it probably wouldn't be as cheap as the solution I came up with. Option number two, the guy said, just order two of the short ones and cut one of the short ones down even shorter. He said I should still be able to get the gear case on. Might be a little trickier, but can do it. I was going to do that. Here's the thing though, the current price on that little plastic sleeve, which by the way, I had one here and I actually lost it, is $5.99. So now call it $6 times 2, $12 plus the minimum shipping charge of at least probably $6 or $7. And I'm into this thing for almost $20 for a couple of stupid little plastic tubes. So I thought, well, maybe I could come up with something. So I started looking around to see what I had for tubing. And the funny thing is, what I've got to have is I've got to have something that has an ID that this tube will fit through. This is 1/2-inch copper tubing. And the OD has to fit down into that gear case. Hold on a second. In other words, the OD has to fit snugly in here. So it can't have an OD larger than this, and it can't have an ID smaller than that 1/2-inch copper tubing's OD. So it's pretty thin walled tubing. So I was looking around, and lo and behold, I got a roll of PEX left over from when we were building the house for the radiant heating system. And I put this PEX and I said, wow, look at that. The OD on this PEX is perfect. The problem was the ID. The ID, actually that's a little bit bigger than it was originally, is too small. So I actually played around here on the drill press and tried to bore out this tubing and make it work. And what happened is, I don't know if you can see it, it's really kind of hard to perceive it, but what happened, I actually already cut a piece off. The drilling process created enough heat and actually started to stretch out the tubing. And so instead of like just cutting out the plastic like it started initially doing, it just kind of started enlarging the whole tubing. And I still couldn't find a drill bit that was perfectly right. So that one's too big. I did have one, I drilled out quite a bit, but then it was still not large enough, the diameter. And then the only other thing I had was this boring, like reaming type milling bit. and I started using this, and this is what started basically just kind of hogging out the thing and stretching it all out. So that was pretty much a failure. Then when I was about to give up, bite the bullet, pay the money, and have another delay in this project, I came up with this idea. So what we've got here is what I did. Hold on a second, I got the other one. Aluminum flashing. I got a roll of aluminum flashing. I just used some recently to help get the hydraulic cylinder together on the Oliver, and it made me think, hey, I've got something thin-walled. So I took a strip, I cut a strip of aluminum flashing. I then rolled it, used this as a form to roll it into the circular shape that I need. And lo and behold, that I can get this to fit right down inside that gear case. And when it's down inside the gear case, I've got plenty of room to get my copper pipe in. And I already did kind of a dry run to see how it would work, and it seems to work out pretty well. And then I could have just left this in here and relied on the fact that when this is inserted in the gear case, it kind of keeps it to form. But I also went one step further, and what I did was I wrapped this in tape. And what I've got is a product that, where is it? This is a product, this is Gorilla Tape. I've used Gorilla Glue in the past, and I needed a wide duct tape style product to fix some cuts I had to make in the underbelly of my fifth wheel trailer. So I wanted a really strong tape, so I said, well, I had good luck with the Gorilla products as far as the glues, so I bought this Gorilla Tape, and I'll tell you, this is nice, strong, sticky stuff. So what I did was I cut a strip of this, and I wrapped it around here, and that kind of acts to keep my my little coil of aluminum together. I was going to try and solder this, but the problem is holding this very close while I solder it is going to be kind of a difficulty. I tried clamping it several ways, and it just kind of wants to spread out, and I couldn't rely on it staying put. And I figure this is more than adequate, because again, this is only used during the actual installation process. So I'll illustrate what I'm talking about now. So here's my gear case. We're going to take my guide tube, is going to sit down inside here like this. Okay, guide tube sticks up. Your coolant tubes are hanging down like this, and what ends up happening is, as you lift the gear case up, you actually want to get one of these guide tubes onto the copper tube. So this is actually going to be slid up onto the copper tube, which you can't even see because it's up in that tower, the exhaust tower. Then you let these drop down, and you raise up the gear case so that you can then insert this in like this. Okay, and then when you raise the whole gear case and snug it up into position, it's going to force this tube to come down. And by the way, we're going to grease this tube. We're going to grease the end of the tube, and that's going to make it want to slide down into, it's going to be aligned up enough so it should slide right into the grommet. Then what happens is this no longer really becomes important. If this were to slide up or out of here for some reason, it's basically useless. It stays captive, of course, because it can't go anywhere other than up and down. But the point is that when I'm going to take this off just to show you, that's actually now right down in the grommet where we want it and making a nice seal. So it's doing what we want it to do. And then of course, one of these being shorter than the other is going to help out. So the other one I cut is a little shorter. So here you go. This is the one I already finished, and this is the one I still have to tape up. And I made it about a ½ inch or 3/4 of an inch shorter. So now I'm just going to tape this up, and then it's already nighttime. Tomorrow during the day, I think we'll get the boat back over here because I had to pull it out of the yard. And we'll get it back over here, and we'll try and put this gear case on. Alright, so now I just finished the other one. See, it's a nice fit. It's a loose fit, not too tight, not too loose on the body of that 1/2-inch copper tubing, which is identical to the OD of the actual coolant tubes in the exhaust tower. So there we go. I am actually looking forward to trying this tomorrow.